This is the Creative Market Free Goods Roundup for the week of June 1st, 2015. So summer is almost here, and with that we have 6 new goods this week. Just remember they are free this week only, so if you see something you like in this video, check out the description of this video where I will place links to each one of these 6 different free items. So first up here is Knowledgebase WordPress theme. So this theme is actually a pretty unique idea because it's built on the idea of a knowledge base, which is actually a pretty unique idea for a theme and something that I haven't personally seen before. And it's also built on WordPress. So if you're familiar with WordPress, you know it's pretty easy to go in here and make updates or changes after the fact of implementing the theme itself. So this should be a nice and very flexible theme for you to use in the future. Now I'm just going to go into one of these little subsections here so you can kind of see how this works as an actual website. So I'll just click on installation, which will bring me to a bunch of different possible articles for installation types. So I'm just going to use the first one on the top here that says why choose WordPress. And this brings us to a page that actually explains whatever that particular topic is. On the side here, you can tell there are sections for all the different areas that you have added to your particular knowledge base theme, as well as latest articles, which is pretty nice if you're constantly updating or adding new information. And on the bottom here, there is a room for explanation, so you can describe your company or yourself, whatever the case may be, as well as a navigation, and then all the social media links that you would come to expect. But another really cool thing about this particular theme is this little printer icon up at the top here. If you click it, it'll bring you to a page that has been styled to be very friendly for printers. Not all websites actually think of doing this, but this theme seems to have made a very specific CSS set to make it extremely friendly for printers. As you can tell, this is a great page to print and much more friendly than if you were to print this entire page by itself. So that's a subtle but very important detail that the author of this theme chose to put in there, and I think that's a really cool bonus. There's a contact page with name, email, subject, and message in case people want to actually get in contact with you or ask further questions. And there's also this blog section in case you want to show even more additional information. Perhaps you can call out new features or new happenings at whatever business this knowledge base happens to be applied to. If you click on the actual article, continue reading right here, it brings you to a page with a nice big image and then plenty of room for type as well as comments below. I'm going to scroll back up to the top here and very quickly go through the style guide here so you can see different ways you can lay out your information inside this particular theme. It's a very clean and very elegantly designed WordPress theme in my opinion. That's really good at just getting to the point and displaying the information in a way that's very easy to interpret and understand. So that's it for this theme. It's a pretty specific theme in that it's for a knowledge base, but if you've been looking for something like a knowledge base to add to your website or your product, then this might be a perfect fit for you. If you like what you've seen thus far, just be sure to pick it up this week. Next up is Tokyo Aerial Cityscapes Photo Bundle. This is a collection of 32 aerial images of Tokyo in JPEG format, and if I go to image and then image size, these are all roughly 5500 by 3500 pixels, so they're plenty big for anything on the web and most print applications as well. And like I said before, there are 32 in total, but I went ahead and just selected 6 of them to give you a pretty good idea of what to expect in this pack. And I actually think all the images are of very high quality and offer a pretty nice subset of images from Tokyo as a whole. There are images like this that are very nice and sweeping images of the city from a pretty high vantage point. And then there's also ones like this that show it at nighttime, which gives you some pretty cool lights from the traffic as well as the buildings below. And then there's ones like this that are much more of a top-down aerial view, kind of just looking straight down on the city. This is actually one of my favorite images from this entire pack because of the really cool lighting of the traffic below it and the way it kind of splits up this image into a neat composition. And this image does a great job of showing the overall urban spread of Tokyo as the huge city that it is. But I like this set because aerial images are actually pretty hard to take. I don't know if these were taken on a helicopter or something like that, or perhaps even a quadcopter. But either way, regardless of how these images were taken, I think the end result is pretty cool. I actually really enjoy the composition of this photo as well. I just think it has a pretty cool look to it. The color palette is nice and subdued while still having a ton of character to it. So if you're looking for some aerial images of Tokyo or large cities in general, this is a pretty cool pack to have because there is a nice selection of stuff here to pick from. Like I said before, there are 32 images in total, and I'm only showing 6 right here. So if you're looking for some nice, very high quality images of the city, then this pack might be something worth picking up. As you can see right here, the detail is very nice, and there is a huge amount of images included in total, so be sure to check them all out, and maybe you'll find something that's really useful for you. Just be sure to pick it up this week while it's still free. Next up, we have Peacock Glitter textures. This is a collection of 5 different glitter textures in JPEG format, and all of them have different colors, and you might think it's the same glitter texture, but each of these textures is actually unique. It just looks somewhat similar because these are glitter textures. So at first glance, most of them tend to look pretty similar. I'm going to jump back to the first one here and go to image and then image size. So you can see that this one is 2400 by 2400 pixels. So it should be plenty big for most print or digital applications. But this is a pretty straightforward texture pack. When you see what you see right here, you have a pretty nice idea of what to expect. And if you want to customize these further in terms of color, you can hit Control U on a PC or Command U on a Mac, which will bring up hue saturation, and then you can adjust the hue to be a different color. depending on what color of glitter you want this to be. You can also either increase or decrease the saturation if you want to make this look a little bit different that way, or even bring up the lightness a little bit if you want this to have a little bit softer appearance overall. But you can definitely customize these that a little bit more if you go ahead and play with those different hue and saturation options. And some ideas for this, if you want to use this on top of type or simple silhouetted images, you might get some pretty cool effects that way. And I'll just shrink this down really quickly here so you can see how it looks as I repeat it. I don't believe these are designed to be seamless repeats, but a lot of time when it comes to glitter textures, you can get away with repeating them pretty well because they're so busy as an item in itself that it's quite hard to actually notice the repeats as they're happening. So this works somewhat well. You can kind of see this line right here where it's repeating, but it's not too significant in my opinion. So if you want to go ahead and use this as a seamless repeat with a little bit of messing around with it and a little bit of blending, I think you could go ahead and do that if you wanted to. But that's it for this pack. There's 5 different glitter textures for you to choose from. So if these look useful to you, just be sure to pick them up this week. Next up is Electro, which is a web font. This font is provided in both TrueType font format as well as web font format, so if you want to use this on a website, it should be nice and easy for you to do that. And I have the TrueType font opened up inside Adobe Illustrator here to show it. And it is all capital letters like the one shown up at the top here. There aren't any lowercase variations of these letters. And I also think that it is important to note that this is really a headline font. It doesn't hold up very well when you get to really small applications. So if you're looking for something nice and bold, but that also has a very unique look to it, I think this is a pretty cool font to use. It has a very futuristic look. And I actually think the way they executed it with the various ways they handle the lines on these letters is actually really cool and very consistent throughout. For example, if you look at the way the K is handled to the way the X right here is handled, they have a lot of visual similarities that make this font work really well together when you start comparing all the different individual letters. And I do think this font has a lot of style that really sets it apart from most other fonts that have a bit more of a standard look. And this also includes all the numbers from 1 to 0 as shown right here, and a handful of different other special characters. If I select this type and then go to type and then glyphs, right here near the top, you can see everything that's included. There are quite a few different letters with accent marks that should cover most Latin-based languages, as well as some other bonus things like a register mark and copyright mark that might come in useful in the future. So right here, I typed up Free Goods Roundup so you can see how this looks typed out into a sentence. At large scale, this is very legible, but still has a pretty cool and unique look to it. And I also think the stock kerning is really solid. I didn't do anything to this particular sentence, and I think all the spacing looks pretty good just the way it is. And I also showed this sentence a little bit smaller here so you can see how it kind of degrades as it gets smaller and smaller. So on this font at the bottom right here, which is at 6 point, it's pretty hard to read some of those individual letters. I can still tell what this says because I know what it does say, but I wouldn't use this font as like body type or something similar to that. I'd want to use this nice and big like this example right here, just because I think it becomes much more easy to read and has a much more bold and impactful appearance when it's nice and large. Once you get a whole bunch of words in a sentence, like if I were to just put a space here, then quickly copy and paste this over and over, things start to blend a little bit at smaller scales, so it becomes a little bit harder to read. So just keep that in mind when you're using this, that this is really meant to be a nice and big headline display font. But I actually really like this font. I think it has a very unique look to it, a very futuristic look to it without being kind of cheesy. A lot of futuristic fonts can have a very cheesy appearance to them overall that makes them kind of like a bad sci-fi movie title or something like that, and I think this particular font avoids that pretty well. So if this font looks useful to you, just be sure to pick it up this week while it's still free. Next up we have thin line device icons. These icons are provided in Illustrator, EPS, Photoshop, as well as SVG formats, so I have the Illustrator file opened up right here, and there are 6 different very simplified icons in total, and although they're called thin line icons, I actually think in context of the size of these icons, the line and weight is actually quite significant, but I think these have a very cool and very simplified appearance to them. So if you're looking for something that has a little bit more of a bold style that's very impactful when it comes to showing off your icons, these are actually kind of a neat thing to use. And I also think that if you look at these up close here, like this one for example, all the line work is very well detailed and very smoothly done. So although these are quite simple in the way they appear, you can tell that they spent some time making sure that everything was very consistent and very well executed, which makes these have a very polished look to them. So if you're looking for some very simplified Apple icons for you to use that kind of set yourself apart from the crowd as far as what typical icons tend to use, then these might come in really handy for you. But this is a pretty simple set. What you see right here is what you get. There are 6 icons in total in vector as well as Photoshop format. So if these look useful to you, just be sure to grab them this week while they're still free. And last up is 15 vector textures. This is a collection of 15 different textures in both EPS as well as PNG format. So I have the PNGs opened up inside Photoshop here to show them, and I should note the PNG files do have transparent backgrounds. I just added in white backgrounds to make these a little bit easier to see. And if you're looking to make these really big, the EPS file format will definitely be the one you want to use, but if you do want to use the PNGs instead, for reference, these are a little over 11,000 by almost 8,000 pixels high, so these are plenty big for pretty much any print application you want to use these in, and more than big enough for anything on the web as well. So I just selected 6 of these at random here to show, just so you can get a better idea of how all these look as a whole. There's a pretty nice and diverse selection of different textures here to pick from. Some that look like they're based on nature, like the first one we saw right here that is a piece of wood, and this one that is much more abstract in its execution. So I'm just going to show these final 3 right here, and this is actually one of my favorite ones of the entire pack because it has a really interesting and abstract look to it. It gives me the impression of fur or something similar that has a very natural but wavy appearance to it. And here's the next one that has a pretty nice mixture of very geometric lines and then some texture inside of these lines. And here's the final one that I picked that also looks like it's a piece of wood. Cracked textures like this can be very useful on things like t-shirt designs or other things that you want to give a really bold and weathered look that'll also stand up to something like screen printing where the finer details will tend to fill in. So like I said before, this entire pack has 15 textures, and these are only the first 6 that I picked at random here to show. So there is a whole lot more than just this included in this pack if you like what you've seen thus far. So if you do like these textures and you want some more and you want to see everything that's included in this pack, be sure to download it this week while it's still free. So that's it for this week's free goods, and do remember they are free this week only. So if you saw something you might have use for, just check out the description of this video where you will find links to download it. And as always, if you found this video helpful, please like and favorite, and if you want to see this video every week, please subscribe. This video is released every Monday to let you know it's free this week on Creative Market. Thank you for watching.